ladies and gentlemen, what it is, what it is, what it is. Thank you for letting us grace the space between your head top as we bring you another episode of the Third Intermission Podcast. This is your boy Dave signing on for the evening. Of course, you can follow us at the socials at Toronto Third, both on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can subscribe and listen and follow us where you normally get your podcast from. That includes Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and our friends at Podbean. It's going to be a little bit of a short one for this evening. We've got a few things we do want to talk about, including the trade deadline, the PWHL and Molson having a new sponsorship agreement, which is 10 times more amazing than we thought it would be. We're also going to talk about John Tortorella and his out of pocket nature as he basically writes another chapter in the fuckery that is his life. We're also going to talk about so many other things here. But first things first, I just want to introduce the squad here for this evening. We were to have Avery this evening, however, he is currently covering the U Sports Men's Basketball Championships. Marsha could not join us, neither could Darren or Reese or Sebastian. So it is just myself. It will also be the Hood General Troy and the Yad Man himself, Jason Fresh. Troy, I'll start with you. What's good?
Not too much, man. Just out here representing the block, working hard, watching hockey games, and still cursing out the Ottawa Senators, hoping that they continue their suckiness.
Jason,
what's up with you guys?
Yeah, yo, just here, man. Another day, another dollar. What's up, Troy? What's up, Dave? Ready here to just chop it up and go on like an epic rant like we always do, man.
Excellent. Real shit. Gotta ask you, how much water have you been drinking lately?
I have my 2-liter jug. I go through that I try to go through it 3 times a day, but I've been going through it 2 times a day because I'm rehabbing my legs and shit right now. So yeah, about that.
Do you not feel waterlogged every time you drink at least 4, if not 5 liters of water a day?
Nah, not really waterlogged, bro. But more so it's just the piston part, yo. It gets annoying after a while. I'm peeing like a racehorse, dog.
Yo, honestly, when you drink that much water and you work in a corporate office, right, it gives you the ability to get more work done because you're minding your own goddamn business.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I drink water, to stay to myself and to mind my business, bro. Real thing.
That's proper. All right. So, like I said, we do have a bit to talk about the Leafs trade deadline and how we feel about the situation. We did have a pretty heated discussion in the group chat back on Friday. Of course, some were for, some were against. Others were more along the lines of just saying, we're still getting our cheeks clapped by a certain hockey team in Boston who can go fuck themselves. But of course, we're gonna rant about that a little bit. We're also going to look into the PWHL standings as Toronto and Montreal, top two most storied hockey cities in all of North America, if not in all of the hockey world. Has now extended itself into the PWHL as both teams are currently at the top of the standings. We're also going to look into the Molson and PWHL sponsorship agreement. Of course, if you've been on the internet a little bit over the last little while and you happen to be a hockey fan or a sports fan, you're starting to see that Molson had created a campaign that allowed for women's names to be more prominent. We'll explain it a little bit more as the episode progresses. And then finally, we're going to talk about John Tortorella's out-of-pocket response to getting rejected from a 7-0 beatdown over this past weekend. First things first, let's talk about the Leafs. If you were under a rock on Friday and you're a hockey fan, the NHL non-waiver trade deadline has come and passed as of 3 p.m. Friday afternoon. A lot of movement going around, a lot of names going to weird teams. For example, Kyle Okposo going to Florida. number of names going to Vegas. The Leafs making a couple small moves here and there with Joel Edmondson and Connor Dewar, of course, also being involved in that. The one of the more massive trades with Jake Gensel and Michael Bunting switching between Pittsburgh and Carolina. Obviously, there were a lot of crazy trades. We did really focus on the Leafs situation, and here in the, I guess you can call it the Wakandan Tribal Center, as I'd like to call our group chat. We had a lot of discussions about what went down with the Leafs and how Brad Living did. But I think Jason wants to take the floor on this one. So Jason, anytime you're ready, you can start ranting a little bit.
I want to see what Troy has to say first. Like how he feels about the team, what we got. I just want to see if what I'm gonna say is in line somewhat with what Troy's saying.
Like coming to you from
Huh?
All right.
like coming to you from the hood is Roy Piper Boyd. Wow.
All right. So, how do I feel about the Leafs, the trade deadline? Well, to be quite honest with you, I was not expecting much of anything out of it. I know that they were pretty pressed up against the cap, so that really limited how much they could do without giving up a big piece of like a main roster player.
Mm-hmm.
The move for Lyubushkin is it's all right. I mean, I'm sure there were other right-handed defensemen available that you could have, gotten at a maybe a better price. But I mean, there is familiarity with Bush and Riley. So I mean, why would you kind of pass that up a little bit? I mean, like instead of having to have another guy come in and learn the system and pair him with him right away.
Mm-hmm.
Then you saw him get knocked around in his first game, and it's like, shit, it changes whatever plans we had for the trade deadline because now you got to replace Lyubushkin. But thankfully, he wasn't too dinged up and was able to play, the next game.
Yeah.
In terms of like the smaller moves, getting Colin Dewar, or I don't know how you pronounce the last name, but whichever way it is, we apologize for botching it. And giving up a little bit of prospect here and there. I'm okay with it because I mean, again, we didn't have much to work with, and I mean, the core four eats up a lot of that money, and like I've said in the group chat, I think the previous regime, once they move on, it continuously leaves the incoming GM a little bit handcuffed, so to speak. Kyle Dubas didn't do Tree Living any favors when he left. Because again, a lot of money is tied up in the core four, which really limits how much you can do when you need to. And I feel like this was the kind of trade deadline where you needed to do something, but we just became, window shoppers, like we said last week. Like I suggested that Tree Living do a little bit of window shopping until, it's time to make a move. But I think he forgot to, do the actual make a move part. But there was limited stuff out there to begin with, so I don't really blame him. There wasn't a lot happening on the goalie market, so I feel like he's comfortable riding into the postseason with Jones, Samsonov, and Wall. Knocking on wood here on my kitchen table. Here's hoping that all three of them stay healthy and we won't need to use all three of them.
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about like the rest of the trade deadline, or do you want me to just leave it out the Leafs right now? Sorry, that's
No,
my daughter.
I want to kind of like jump in and just expand on like what you were saying. So with the Riley and the Bushkin thing, for me, I think that was a good deal based off of the familiarity the two have between each other and the fact that they were, based off of the amount of games that they played, a pretty good pairing as far as, you know, goals against and things of that nature when it comes to defensive stats. So I didn't mind that move. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I wanted a big name, right shot defenseman. I didn't think that Labushkin would have been that name, but Troy made a great point. We were handcuffed, right? Based off of the pieces that we have, yeah, in our minds, we can make up fantasy trades. You know what I'm saying? But management, you know, has other plans and other ideas. Like, I'm surprised that Nick Robertson survived this trade deadline. You know what I'm saying? Because he was a prospect that was talked about to get moved here and there, you know? So it just goes to show you Tree Living has faith in the core itself, meaning that this playoff run is going to be up to the core guys. Tree Living, as a general manager, has done what he was supposed to do. He changed the direction and the pattern and the identity of the team. And I'll explain that. He signed Ty Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi, two guys that play the game a certain way. He got Noah Gregor, although we don't see much of him, and he got Ryan Reeves. So he's trying to click that toughness, you know, nastiness box, and he's doing a good job, right? Because you have Matthews, you have Marner, you have Tavares, you have Nylander. These guys are all 20-goal scorers. You know what I mean? So the scoring is not going to be the issue. You have Matthew Nyes emerging, Bobby McMahon. So the scoring is not the issue. Now, as far as what was done on the trade deadline on that day, I'm all right with it. And I'll explain why. Like I said, I honestly wanted like Perieko and Vucevic from St. Louis. That's what I wanted. But in the back of my mind, I knew that wasn't really gonna happen. You know what I mean? Just based off of like management, you know, not being in a position where they could make that trade and move the players they wanted to move in that situation. You know what I mean? Because there's a plan. Tree Living is coming into the fold during the plan. You know what I mean? So it's not like it was his plan to begin with. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, like, as far as adding a guy like Joel Edmondson, Stanley Cup winner, 6'5", just a nasty defenseman on the back end. Like, you got to think about it. We're going to play Boston first round. Game 1, Edmonton is going to be cross-checking everybody. Game 2, same thing. Game 3, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how many games can your body sustain of getting cross-checked in your back and shit in a playoff series? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and Edmonton, he has, although he wasn't top pairing on that Stanley Cup team, he was on it and he played an important role. And it's the little things he does. It's his patience, his calmness, his defensive awareness, him being a veteran and knowing what to do in certain situations. You know what I'm saying? Him knowing when to be physical, him when to go in the corners and bang it out. Like, he's just a smart guy. Even him to like lead the breakout passes. And we've seen a glimpse of this last night. You know, like when the Leafs were playing Montreal, like he was laid back, cool, making plays, helping Liljegren. You know what I'm saying? Get the puck out of the back end. You know what I'm saying? But I like the Edmonton edition. I feel that it's even going back to the Montreal-Toronto series, like Edmonton made Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, all these guys' lives hell in front of fucking Carey Price during that series. How many cross checks did we complain about that never got called? You know what I'm saying? Like, how many shits happened in that series because of Edmonton? You know, like, he made some good plays. I think he was on a pairing with Sherratt or some shit like that, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, I'm glad he's on our team. I'm glad to have like a guy with a good reputation in the locker room and throughout the league, and a leader like Joel Edmondson. So I'm happy with that addition. Connor Dwyer, I just want to say, like, next to Darcy Tucker, I think he's like the first like Métis descent player like to play in the NHL after Darcy Tucker on the Leafs. Something like that is what I seen or came across. I don't know all of it like in full detail, but it was something along those lines. And this guy plays like a modified version of physical toughness of Jordan Tutu with a mix of the scoring touch like Darcy Tucker. Now he doesn't have 90 goals. No, I'm not saying like that, but the type of player, his model, like he's a guy that will leave his heart on the ice. He'll give you those minutes. He's a very defensive minded forward, back checking, he can skate, he gets into the scrums. He just plays the type of game that you need on your team, when you're going into a 7-game series against Boston. I think Tree Living added this guy because this guy is going to be the guy to neutralize Marchand on the ice. So we have our version of Brad Marchand in this new acquisition by Tree Living, and I like it. He looked good last night, making some smart plays. He can play up and down the lineup, and he can play like on the wing or in the middle. But for me personally, based off of what I see and like how the team is moving, I think you want to keep Nyes and McMahon together and put Connor Dwyer in the middle between those two guys, because it gives that line like a relentless, youthful, forechecking, aggressive, nasty line, right? And usually your third line is your shutdown line, right? So I hope Keith experiments that plan and just puts Kampf back to the fourth line center, because I feel like Kampf and Reeves have a good little vibe going. They know how to support each other when they're on the forecheck and stuff, and they're getting it together in the games of late defensively as well, right? So as far as the trade line acquisitions, I'm not gonna give the Leafs like an A plus. I'm gonna give them like maybe like a C. You know what I'm saying? Because we didn't get the big name right shot defenseman that we wanted to get. You know what I'm saying? But we got guys that filled certain holes, right? When was the last time we had like a 6'5", over 200-pound bruising defenseman that could actually play on our back end? You know what I'm saying? Like in comparison to like teams of the past, like, and just having what we have now, I think we have the right pieces. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say O'Reilly and Ochari wasn't the right pieces last year. They were the right pieces. You know what I'm saying? But I'll always say it's the DDT by Sam Bennett on Matthew Nyes at the back of the net that took Nyes out the series, that changed the complexion of the series altogether, So I kind of like where we stand. I like what we have. I like the pushback in the last Boston game. So yeah, no, I give them a C plus for this trade deadline, because we didn't get the right shot defenseman that we wanted, but we filled the holes that we needed to fill. Tree Living did a good job, and he still kept his first, and he still kept Pupi Namila, and he still kept Easton Cowan, and he still kept Connor Minton. So on Tree Living, that's a massive win. You know what I'm saying? Massive, massive, massive win. So you're okay for next year. You know what I'm saying? You're okay for next year. But in regards to this year, yeah, it's going to be a deep run for us, man. Multiple rounds we're winning this year, man. Real shit. I kind of like the structure of the team now.
If I had to give it a letter grade, I would probably go with like a B minus or a C as well. Because, I mean, like we said, there was only so much he could do. He addressed what he felt he needed to fill, not what the fans wanted. And the fact that he was able to do that with the minimal resources he had, I think he did a really good job. I mean, like you said, like keeping, the prospects, keeping some picks, because I mean, we don't have any picks really. We're not stacked like OKC is in the NBA with draft picks everywhere. I think he did a really good job.
You
I
know
mean,
what, Troy? I forgot. I don't mean to cut you, but I want to mention too. He used a draft pick to get a defenseman that's 6'7", Cade Weber, I believe, from Boston College, who is a menace, who is a fuck. So like, yeah,
yes,
like
I
I'm
saw
gonna
those
up my
clips.
grade. I'm
Oh
gonna
my
up my
God,
grade.
yes.
I'm gonna up my grade because we talk about, like, on the show we always rant about like draft picks and what we have in our farm, and it's not like, okay, we paid for Labushkin, but you got to look at the salary retention. Fine, we lost Lagerson on waivers. Okay, fine, but we got a 6'7" menace. We got a defenseman that has Stanley Cup experience and is a Stanley Cup champion, and we have a player who plays a game similar, maybe not, yeah, I'll say this, not as offensively talented as Brad Marchand, but the games that they play, the way they play, if I had to compare, they're very similar. Marchand is on the PK. Dewar is on the PK. Dewar can play anywhere up and down the lineup. Marchand, you could play him anywhere up and down the lineup. You know what I'm saying? So it's like their games are they're small guys, like in stature, but they're very like, they're feisty guys. You know what I mean? And they fight for every inch on the ice. And I prefer this edition of Dewar versus Domi going to the box every 5 minutes trying to like choke Marchand, right? Now you have a guy that could get under Marchand's skin, right? And take him off his game. So yeah, I'm gonna give Tree Living, I'm gonna upgrade my grade from the C to a B- with Troy. That's where I'm at. Because I forgot about Cave Weber. Sorry, Troy.
That's okay. Speaking of Weber, yeah, like when you were showing me his highlight pack, immediately I'm thinking like this is like the love child of like Chris Pronger and Brian Marsman, who are like
Oh my gosh.
who lived on the edge of the habitual line that you stepped over.
Oh my gosh.
And
I can't wait.
I like it. I like it. I can't wait to see him bring that to the league.
I think I posted a clip. The puck was going in the corner. Not on my Twitter. I posted in the group chat. I don't know if you've seen it. The puck was going in the corner, and 3 of the other team's players were going for the puck. Him oneself went over there and knocked over the 3 players and got the puck. It was funny.
Yeah, he went bowling for dollars. He went bowling for dollars. Boom. I was like, I'm gonna take it all out. I can't pick this one.
Oh, that was a great that was a masterclass there by Tree Living. Like and you see what's smart about it is he knew that he wasn't gonna sign in Carolina. Like, like based off of what Carolina was saying, yeah, he's not gonna sign here. Tree Living said, all right, we might find a gem, we might not, but this guy fits my bill. Let me use a draft pick now and get this to replenish my defensive prospect pool in the minors and shit. And I thought that was a brilliant move. I just wanted to bring that up. I thought that was a brilliant move.
No, I like I'm somewhat like on the fence in regards to how well we did during the trade deadline. Just did a little research on where our draft how our draft situation is looking over the next little while. Toronto still has a few draft picks for next year. We still have our first. We've got a fourth. We've got 2 fifths and 2 sevenths for this year. Next year, we don't have a pick until the 5th round. And then it's the 6th and the 7th. And then in 2026, we got a first, a third, a 5th, and a 7th. We should have all our draft picks for 2027. Given the amount of trades and the amount of draft capital we've given away, or sorry, let me rephrase that. Given the amount of draft capital we've parted ways with for other teams, on top of the fact that we've basically acquired essentially not even 1-year rentals, more like say 3-4 month rentals for a potential playoff run. What has me nervous about this is like, say, when we do face a Boston, or say a potential like or like say even Florida, or say we fall into the wild card spot, we face New York or Carolina in the first round. The thing that really bugs me is, even with the amount of like say physical depth that we would have in Edmondson and Labushkin, and of course with having Connor Dewar as a bottom 6 forward, being able to throw the body rather than just be a playmaker, that kind of has me heavily concerned, because if Toronto wants to make a deep run, and yes, before any of you say anything, I do understand how Toronto's cap situation is kind of handicapping us, no pun intended. But at the same point in time, it's like you could have made a splash for something a little bit better in that situation. Ideally for me, Toronto really didn't give that much of an effort when it came to the trade deadline, because it's like you know essentially after a while Toronto is going to have to make a decision in regards to the core five. And I have stated this in our group chat recently. And it's like, okay, who's essentially going to go? Because a lot of people are saying, a lot of us were saying Riley, I was saying Marner. We know Tavares will essentially be done within the next year or so. Matthews is locked up long term. Nylander's locked up long term. But we haven't really performed very well in the playoffs. And what, only a second round appearance in the last 15, 20, in the last 15 years? That kind of really doesn't show for much. Now, obviously, we still have to wait for these trades to pan out and see how well they'll do within the next little while. But Monday and Thursday were great indications that Toronto still has a lot of work to do if they want to beat good teams and potentially make an Eastern Conference Finals run. Now, I know you guys might have a different opinion on that, but again, I'll change my tune I'll change my tune on things when I see and believe that Toronto's actually serious about making a deep run.
They are. These moves show that they are. These moves, like a lot of people like feel the same way you feel. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like what's gonna happen with the core four and this and that. Like me, I wouldn't touch it. Right now, it's definitely not broken. You gotta look at it like this. Like I mentioned previously, like the issues with the Maple Leafs in the playoffs were scoring and not being strong enough, winning board battles and fighting for every inch, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to look at the signings before the season started and then what was added to those signings and what we had in our system that we brought up that's currently playing. You know what I'm saying? And based off of that, no, like talent-wise, we're not up there like with Vegas or Colorado or Florida. Like, you know what I mean? Based off of the additions that they made at trade deadline and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Are we up there? I want to believe that we are talent-wise, yes. But, I mean, they made moves to get better. I get what you're saying there. They made those moves because they had a certain amount of flexibility, you know what I mean, to make those moves. Now, with their core guys, I don't see or foresee those teams that you brought up that did well, Dave, during the trade deadline. I don't see them, you know, foreseeing them busting up their core guys. You know what I mean? Even though, like, some of them are having, like, mediocre success. You know what I'm saying? So Florida kind of got lucky last year, and that's what happened to them. Are they going to do the same thing? No. Bob just went on he just went on a heater, and then he got fucked when they had to play Vegas. When they had to play Vegas and how relentless they are. Like, yeah, they weren't ready for that. And if you look at a team like Vegas, yes, they added, but you got to remember Vegas had guys like Chandler Stevenson and Jonathan Marchessault. Like, we don't really have guys like that play like that. Yeah, those guys score goals, but those guys like fight for every inch. Like, you could say talent-wise, Marner is better than Marchessault and both of those guys talent-wise. But like the way those guys play the game, they play it on a different level. We have guys now in the playoff time that play the game on that different level as Marchessault and as those guys that Chandler Stevenson, those small guys, Ivan Barbashev, like guys like that we need and we got in Domi, Bertuzzi, Dewar, Edmondson, like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I wouldn't worry about too much about busting up the court, and I wouldn't worry about the playoffs this year and who did what during trade deadline, because the playoffs is a different game, and we say this all the time. You may look good on paper, but it all depends on how good you look on paper, if you can translate that on the ice when it matters most. Remember, Tampa looked very good last year, and look what happened. Look how many people were saying, no, it's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? But I told people it was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? So, like, yeah, bro, like, I wouldn't worry too much about the core or the future of this organization right now. Mm-hmm. What Keith needs to do is get a handle on the team and figure out what your lines are going to look like for game one. This is where you got to see where Edmondson fits the best. You got to figure out where you want to play Dewar in the lineup, like, and how you want to balance out the guys that you have on the roster right now on the lineup. Work on that. Work on playing structured style hockey that is very similar, if not playoff hockey. Now you have a couple of games to get into shape to do that. Start doing that now. Start making sure that you guys are finishing every check and you're doing your best to win every board battle. And you guys, most importantly, are sticking up for each other and sticking together on the ice. Start doing that stuff now. You know what I mean? So that when game one comes in Boston, you know what I mean? You guys are coming out ready. No excuses. Trade deadline is done. Now it's time to put in the work.
I feel that. You know what? I think I'll just. I think I'll keep an eye on how things are going to go, and maybe make a more of an educated guess from there. Again, seeing is believing, and if Toronto really does pull it off and find a way to essentially shed all of their demons by potentially beating the Bruins and making it back to the Eastern Conference Final for the first time since 2002. Until they do that, I mean, I'm going to be at least somewhat skeptical about things. Don't get me wrong, I love this team and what have you. I'm just a little iffy about Brad Treliving. Treliving really didn't have that much of a great track record since he was the GM of Calgary. And Calgary had only made one, if not two, conference semifinal appearances. Nothing more significant about that. Mind you, will he be the guy going forward to actually get the Leafs to the Cup final? Potentially. I say potentially only because of the fact that, like, I don't want to be negative about it, but again, seeing is believing in the situation. And
it's right now it's up to the core guys to do the heavy lifting, because all the bottom type players, like I mentioned, Barbashev, Marshall, so all those guys are there. You need some of those guys on your team to help you. So you have those type of guys that play that type of style. Now it's just up to the core. It's how bad Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, how bad do they want it now? And you guys know Morgan Riley is insane once game one starts and it comes to the playoffs. He is a different Morgan Riley than we're seeing right now. So, like, yeah, it's totally different, bro. I'm not even worried, bro.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on how the Leafs are going to do over the next little bit. Of course, the playoff race is still heating up right now. We're about to reach the finish line of the regular season, as there is 1 month left as of this particular point. And Toronto has at most, say, about 18 games left in their schedule, 18 to 19 games. So hopefully Toronto can lock up a playoff spot and essentially destroy what's left of the playoff demons that currently have been plagued from 2013. All right, moving on. We are very proud to see that Toronto, the PWHL has thrived the way it has. And of course, now looking at the PWHL standings, it seems that Toronto and Montreal have finally gotten to the top. Well, it seems that Toronto's finally gotten the message and has finally gotten to the top of the standings. Currently, at the time of this recording, Toronto right now is sitting, when this thing actually decides to pop up properly, Toronto is actually sitting on top of the PWHL standings with 30 points. They have 8 wins under their belt, 3 overtime wins, and 5 regulation losses, none in overtime. They have currently won 9 out of their last 10 games, which is outright spectacular in itself. and they're just making noise for themselves right now, which is completely stellar. Of course, Toronto will not have their next game until St. Patty's Day when they take on Montreal in Pittsburgh. They've got 2 more games, one in Toronto, next one in Ottawa on the 20th and the 23rd, respectively. And then finally, they will finish out their season in the month of April as they will play 3 more games. And then they'll have 3 more games in April and 2 more in Toronto. I don't know if you guys have been keeping an eye on things when it comes to Toronto and Montreal, but like I said before, this is really good hockey, and you'd have to either be really oblivious to it or really just hate women in order to not watch this hockey league. And I have to say, I'm very proud of like how things are going with the PWHL. I don't know if if the first fight is gonna eventually break out. I know Sarah Nurse was about ready to drop the gloves the other day, as posted in our group chat. But it seems that Toronto's finally just clicking, and for the first time in a very long time, Toronto could have their second professional hockey team winning a cup within the last 30 years. Now, of course, if you were fans of the Toronto Six, you know that the Toronto Six were the last Isabel Cup champions, and those ladies worked extremely hard in order to be able to finally lift the Isabel Cup before the PHF and the PWPHL decided to merge and become the PWHL. But as it stands right now, it's looking like Toronto will lock themselves up a playoff spot as they have 8 games remaining in their season. Montreal, as it stands right now, is also sitting on 30 points. They have 7 games remaining. And of course, every other team has a game in hand, including Boston has 2. Essentially, this is Toronto's position to lose. Troy and Jason, I'm going to throw this to you. How do you feel about, say, the top? Well, say Toronto and Montreal being like the biggest hockey markets they are. Do you see these two facing each other in the final again? We could have like say another original 6 rivalry with this league, or do you feel that say Toronto and Montreal will just be as some kids would like to say mid in the situation?
I don't know who's saying mid. They're probably watching an Ottawa Senators game if they're saying mid. Women's hockey is exciting. I mean, like I've said over the last couple episodes, there are times where I will put on a PWHL game over an NHL game.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of building a rivalry, I think people want to see it that way just because the NHL version has the rivalry. I think we need to give it time because this is still a brand new league. It's still their first season. I mean, yeah, we've seen a little bit of bad blood here and there, and you see Nurse, her jerking some people around, wanting to punch a bitch in the face, but I mean that's what brings excitement to the game. I mean, like it's little things like that that start rivalries. I don't think that we're there yet with Montreal, but like I said, this is a brand new league. You gotta let shit fester a little bit first before you can say it's a full blown rivalry. I think this is planting the seed to become a rivalry. Not yet one, but water it, let it bloom. We'll get there. And I think you're going to see this with other teams too. And I mean, I think just because of the whole regional thing, like when you put, certain cities together, like, Toronto, Montreal, or Boston, New York, you especially with Boston and New York, when you think of rivalries, with those two teams, I don't think original six in hockey. I think Major League Baseball, Yankees and Red Sox kind of
Yeah,
deal, where one team hates the other, kind of deal, and like they're constantly showing disdain for one another. I think, you follow that footsteps, that kind of blueprint. I think you definitely have, again, more seeds to plant in terms of developing a rivalry. I don't really know where Minnesota fits into any of this in terms of the rivalry thing, but I mean, like, hey,
yeah.
they're they're part of the league still. I mean, you know, they're probably just the annoying little brother that likes to go around and just pissing people off kind of deal, and I'm sure they're okay with it. But yeah, I think overall with all six teams, give it time. Give it time, buckle up. We're gonna be in for a good ride, and it's gonna be nothing but fun from here on out watching the PWHL.
Yeah, no, I agree with Troy there, man. It's an exciting league. Like, like just watching the way these women play the game, like they play it on a level to where it's like as the way the men are playing the game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're tenacious, wild forechecking. You're seeing like full out blown contact. You know what I'm saying? Like the this league is very exciting right now. You know what I'm saying? And this is the time like where people need to like take it up and take interest in it. Like, look what Toronto and Montreal did. Wow, like, what was it, like 19,000, 20,000 at Scotiabank when they did that game there? So, like Troy said,
19,185, legit.
yeah, right. So, like what Troy was saying about like planting the seed and letting it bloom, like just give it time. But the rivalry will definitely develop and grow. As teams are going to be added to the league, more rivalries are going to be built. As far as the finals go, I can't really say right now because like the way it's set up, the first seed gets to pick who they want to play like in the playoffs, right? And that could backfire easily. So I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. Like I like Toronto. I think they won what, 8, 9 in a row or something like that. So they're on a tear. They're on a heater right now. So yeah, like it's gonna be this playoffs is gonna be great, like for women's hockey in the PWHL. I can't wait for it.
For real. Um, Also keeping tabs on the PWHL. You guys have noticed that, say, the last names for like every single player on the bottom of the jerseys as opposed to the top of the jerseys now, right? Well, I'm actually asking you guys a question, legit, because like I'm not just trying to throw that out there.
No, my one of my colleagues showed me the video and I seen it because there's times like where I'm trying to see who's on the ice and I can't see who's on the ice because their ponytails, right, are hanging over. So I'm just trying to piece it together, right? Because I can't really listen like when I'm watching, if I'm watching, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
When I'm in the bunker, right? At work. So at the end of the day, like this I think was a great move by Molson. They have the names now of the players in a spot on the jersey where people can see the name and they can associate the name with the number of the player of that team, which is easier to identify, like, as opposed to it being in the traditional place, right? So that was a great move there as far as bringing the visibility to the athletes who are playing in the league. I think that's really awesome for the ladies. And it was a good move by Molson. Like, and now they have a sponsor that could take this women's hockey league to the next level by
Mhm.
continuing to sponsor it and pumping more money into it so that we can get maybe more teams and some arenas and more salary for the ladies and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, this is a great thing, man. And I think the league is just gonna continue to go up. And I even like the penalty kill rule, like like where like if a team scores like on a penalty kill, there's some kind of, I think, how does that rule go? The penalty kill rule? When
It's the jailbird rule, where
yes.
if you're shorthanded and you score shorthanded, your player comes out of the box and the other team's power plays over. However,
Ah,
it does not apply to 5 minute major.
yeah, I like that rule, bro. It changes the complexion of a game. Imagine being down
So
by
like
like 2 goals. You know what I'm saying? And then
When
you're shorthanded, you score. Now you go on the power play because you scored shorthanded, and then you score again. Like that could shift the game all the way, bro.
it does.
Like
I mean, like I don't remember which game I was watching when that happened because like it's only happened a few times, but like I was watching one of the games where it did happen. Like the place goes like the building goes nuts. People, the fans in the building, and like the people watching at home, they want to see that. They're
yeah,
hoping, they're
yeah,
hoping to get a shorthanded goal. And
yeah,
like when it actually happens, like the benches, they get so happy and elated. It's so because it's so much fun to see because it's like yes, like I I scored a like or we scored a one of the a jailbreak goal kind of deal, and then we're back to even strength. And like you said, it affects the flow of the game. It can take the wind out of your sail because I mean like the team that's on the power play, like they could have all the momentum, and then like one bad bounce here and there, boom, the puck's in the back here and that. Instead of being up a woman, you're at even strength now. But now the goal that they scored could either be a game tying goal or a game winning goal.
Yeah,
either
and
or.
Yeah, and it changes like the dynamic of the game, and that's something that we're dying to see in the men on the men's side. Like I'm so I,
Bettman doesn't have the balls, bro. He doesn't have the balls. He doesn't have the balls to
no
fucking change a league like that's been structured for. He doesn't have the balls to do that, bro.
no. But for me, in terms of how I feel about the names being moved on the jerseys, I think this has a better effect than what this year's NHL All Star jerseys did because the NHL All Star jerseys they had the names on the bottom, but you couldn't see that.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, like you couldn't see that, and like the way the jerseys are designed for the women, you will see that. And the fact that Molson and the good people at Got Milk, the fact that they're just like, yo, we're willing to cover up our names so that way you can see theirs. Big ups to them because I mean, like, they understand, like, in order to gain familiarity with the players, you need to know who they are. I mean, you might be like, you could be somebody like Jason, where like you're watching the TV without the sound or something like that, right? And you're trying to figure out who that is. So instead of putting in a rule where it's like all players must put their hair up under the helmet, instead of doing that kind of shit, no. Instead of forcing them to do something, just move the name. It's so much easier than fighting with a league full of women with long hair. I mean, the NHL can't do that because it's none of these guys have hair that go past like their ears. Most of them are bald.
Yep.
So the
Yep.
NHL players ain't got.
how gone are the days where like a men's league, like there's dudes with mullets in a men's league, right?
Oh
Because
man.
like
Yeah, Yager had probably the best mullet ever. If you're gonna talk about mullets in the NHL, nobody's beating Yarmir
No,
Yager,
oh,
bro.
trust me,
never.
but
Yager
like
had the best mullet.
he really did. But of course, in like with the women's league, obviously women obviously have longer hair, and like trying to tell them, oh, put it in a bun or cut your hair. That's kind of a little offensive for us to actually be able to say that. Yeah, given the fact that like we have no control over the autonomy of women's bodies, and I think it's very reflective. Like it's very reflective of things that like Molson stepped up. Molson and of course the dairy farmers of Ontario decided to step up and say, you know what, like we're going to just put our logos just somewhere where at least it's on the jersey, but we want to highlight the names of like some of the other players more. And like just to piggyback off of what Jason had said earlier, it's a really great thing because it's like now it gives us a chance to actually finally see who could be a star, who could be a big name, just by basically finding out whose numbers on the back and who actually is wearing that particular number instead of just having to ask somebody to move their damn ponytail, which is kind of fucked up in the first place. So I really do like this idea. Um, Now, of course, is this going? Well, sorry to reiterate Troy's question. Is this going to be a thing in the men? Um, Jason, you're 100% right. Batman's not going to be able to do anything. in regards to promoting positive change in the NHL. And it sucks because there is a lot of things that Toronto could, or well, excuse me, let me rephrase that. I keep mentioning Toronto because I'm looking at Toronto's PWHL jersey and they're completely sold out right now, which is kind of crazy in itself. But getting back to the topic at hand here, the NHL obviously doesn't do anything unless it benefits them, and it's an extremely sad thing to say, but it's also a true thing to say in this situation. Wouldn't you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, until Bettman decides to step down or say something that we're not going to mention on air happens, like we're kind of stuck with the current regime of the NHL right now. But like, there needs to be fresh blood that will actually be able to come up with more innovative ideas, especially something like the Molson and the PWHL campaign. Because I'd like to be able to actually enjoy the game and not have to worry about small shit, like say for example not being able to see a player's name and what have you, especially in the women's game. But I don't know. Hopefully something changes where say the NHL can get its shit together. I'm also very excited for what's going to happen with the PWHL playoff situation. Toronto could essentially pick Boston or Montreal or even Minnesota, right? And like, what would happen if, say, Toronto took say the first place team took the second place team, right? Which are right now Toronto and Montreal respectively. What would happen in that situation? Does the third place team, does the third place team get to face off against fourth place team? Have a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4 playoff format, or could something completely different change? You know, there's so many different variables, even though there's only 4 teams in this situation. So we're gonna keep an eye on things. Obviously, we're going to try and see if we can get ourselves a playoff ticket at least, so we can actually be in the building when things get crazy. But very exciting times in women's hockey. All right, so we're going to go to our last segment here. We're going to talk about John Tortorella and his out-of-pocket nature, of course. The man has been known to be extremely out of pocket within the last 10, 15 years being a head coach.
One sec. Before we talk about Tortorella, can we talk about like what teams we felt did good like in the trade deadline and stuff? Because we didn't even touch on
I
that.
was just going to say that.
Like,
I'm
actually,
my mic because I know that we skipped that.
Yeah, no, we didn't skip it. No, Troy, no, trust me. When you said it, we would have been able to like touch on the women, right? Like when we were supposed to. I think we talked Leafs and then after we went to the women, so that kind of worked out. It's a nice balance, but yeah. Now, like right now, yeah, let's talk about like the teams that did well and didn't do well, so we can get that out of the way.
Of course, you know what? Let's dive into that. We're going to sidestep from what we were initially going to do in talking about John Tortorella, and we're actually going to talk about the NHL trade deadline itself. Noticeably, San Jose is doing what they're essentially set out to do. Considering that they're dead last in the league, they figured, you know what, why not just have a fire sale, get rid of some of the players that have been long tenured and, you know, start from scratch. Thomas Hertel going to Vegas for David Edstrom and a first rounder next year. Of course, Vegas also receiving a third next year and a third in 2027. And then, of course, San Jose also switching goaltenders with New Jersey. Capo Kakinen going to San Jose in exchange for Vitek Vachanik, along with a 7th next year. Of course, Vegas was making a lot of moves during the trade deadline. Winnipeg, of course, winning the Tyler Toffoli sweepstakes. They acquired him in exchange for a third this year and a second next year. San Jose also making a trade with Detroit for a defenseman and a seventh next year, and a seventh this year. Nick Patan, of course, former Leaf, going from Minnesota to New York, or going to the Rangers, excuse me. Jason Zucker leaving the desert to go to Nashville in exchange for a sixth this year. Pat Maroon, two-time Stanley Cup champion, bouncing around from team to team, leaves Minnesota for Boston, which kind of scares us a little bit. Andrew Peak going from Columbus to Boston for a defenseman and a third in 2027. Kyle Okposo going from Buffalo to Florida. Kuznetsov going from a rival in Washington, going to a rival in Calgary from Washington for a third next year. Malcolm Subban hopefully getting some starting minutes in Columbus as he leaves St. Louis. And then, of course, the big trade of the day that happened back on Thursday between Carolina and Pittsburgh. Jake Gensel, a defenseman, head to Carolina in exchange. Pittsburgh will receive Michael Bunting, of course, former Leaf great. Couple prospects, the rights to a prospect and a conditional first this year. Or sorry, a conditional first and fifth this year. So many crazy trades that have happened over the last few days, and with the trade line basically dead and gone now, we really have to ask ourselves who won and who lost out in this year's trade deadline. I guess I'll start this first. Biggest loser in this situation happens to be say Columbus. Columbus didn't do much to get themselves in a better position. Obviously, they had to get goaltending depth in Malcolm Subban, as Elvis Merzlikins essentially wants out, and he's playing like trash. Not being able to live up to, I guess, expectations and trying to get themselves back into a playoff spot. And Patrick Laine has basically left the team for the foreseeable future. Columbus just heavily on the decline. It's a little tough to be a Blue Jackets fan, considering like they've been consistently either just losing games or just not giving enough effort. And of course, with your best scorer in Adam Fantilli and Boom Jenner, not much can be said about the Columbus Blue Jackets right now, at least in a positive light. So I guess the best thing that they can do is just hit the brakes on trying to make the playoffs and focus on next year. If you guys do have different teams, what different teams that you feel have lost out, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick a winner and a loser.
Mm-hmm.
So my winner that's not named the Vegas Golden Knights, I'm gonna say is the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I agree with
Having
that.
Sean Monahan in the fold, I know his cousin. I went to school with him. Yeah, I think Winnipeg picking up Tyler Toffoli is an excellent pickup. It gives them more depth. They're still solid defensively, and I mean, you're playing in front of Connor Hellebuck, which is arguably one of the best goaltenders in the league right now. So I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. And Toffoli, when he gets hot, the guy goes like Johnny Blaze hot. Like
Yep.
you can't really stop him once he finds his groove. If I had to pick a loser, I'm going with the LA Kings. They absolutely needed to address their goaltending because they're getting mediocre goaltending out of Cam Talbot and I don't even remember the other guy's name. They're getting mediocre goaltending, and Rob Blake knows it. Like this is his last chance to really get the Kings over the hump. Right now, the Kings, where are they? Let me open my thing again. The Kings, they're holding on to the third spot in the Pacific. Vegas is holding on to a wild card spot. So LA and Vegas can flip flop wild card spots because they both have 75 points. And then also on top of it too, you've got Nashville, who's breathing right down their neck. So Nashville has more points than LA, but I guess because they're in a different division, Nashville and Vegas hold the wild card spot. So LA, they had an opportunity to address their goaltending. I mean, Jake Allen was out there. He's capable. He's serviceable. He knows what to do. But they chose to kind of more or less stand pat and not do anything. I mean, I don't feel like they're in the same position as the Leafs, where you're kind of comfortable with the pieces that you have to try to get the job done. LA, not so much because I believe they're still one of the oldest teams in the league. So I mean, like they didn't really do anything to address their current situation or address their future. So those are my winners and losers for me. What about you, Jason?
Um, man, if I'm being honest, Vegas definitely won the trade deadline, bro. They got friggin' Anthony Mantha retained, half off,
Mhm.
and they got Noah Hannafin for like 1 point something million, I want to say. So Vegas, another winner I'd say is Colorado. They made some good moves. Um, Florida is another winner. They picked up Tarasenko. Um,
I think we're overlooking San Jose in this situation, even though they've lost like a whole whackload of the
no, Mike Greer is a crazy guy because he sent Thomas Hurdle to San Jose, and he still had to send draft picks to Vegas for them to retain on Thomas Hurdle. San Jose is the biggest loser at trade deadline, as far as I'm concerned, just based off of the Thomas Hurdle trade alone. I almost forgot about that trade. That trade, oh my goodness, gravy. Buffalo actually got better too at the deadline. I like what they did. I like what they did with Colorado. What was it Jack Johnson for Bo Bram or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't remember that trade in full detail. That was a good trade. I'm just trying to see what else we didn't cover. There, yeah, Troy brought up the Toffoli trade. I thought that was a pretty good trade. I think this is the fourth deadline that the Islanders didn't do anything in the trade deadline. Edmonton, Avery, or Oilers, they made some good moves. I like the fact that they picked up Adam Henrique and Connor Carrick. So see, Edmonton now is starting to build around McDavid and Leon and getting them those playoff guys that can play a certain way. So yeah, I like those pickups for Edmonton. The Henrique pickup and the Connor Carrick pickup with the Ducks. That was a pretty good deal there too. Um, but yeah, overall the winner definitely the Vegas Golden Knights won this trade deadline. Anthony Mantha, Thomas Hurdle, and Noah Hannafin. That's insane. Colorado did get better, but they didn't do what Vegas did. So yeah, I would say Vegas is the winner, all biasness aside. And then I would say San Jose for the Thomas Hurdle trade is the biggest loser, as far as I'm concerned. So now we got to see how these pieces are going to perform. Tarasenko, I think, had what, 2 in his first debut. I
Yeah.
don't know if Foley scored yet, and I don't know like what the situation is with um not Hannafin, Hurdle and Mantha in Vegas if they scored or not. And the Washington trade, you know who the second loser of the trade deadline is? It's the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I was about to say.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Penguins are the biggest losers ever. Like
I feel
me
like they gave up
personally,
way too much in that Carolina trade.
it's not that they gave up way too much. You got to understand Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Grunsel is kind of like the core that we have down here. Like I know you have to move on from the core, but there's a way to do that. You know what I'm saying? And there's ways to go about that. I don't really respect the way Dubas handled that situation. Just seeing Sidney Crosby in that type of like state of mind that he was in during that interview. You could see it all in his face. And Sid is a guy, he never hides his emotion from the camera. Like he's always been good with the camera. But this is the first time I've seen Sid in this type of state that he was in. So I feel really bad for Sid. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say Pittsburgh is another loser. Um, and I'd like to say that.
Hey,
Go ahead.
sorry, my bad.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So wasn't there rumors swirling around that like Crosby might actually consider leaving Pittsburgh for potentially Vegas, Colorado, and shockingly Toronto?
The guy that posted that was the same idiot that posted that Otani was coming to Toronto and had all of us fucking tracking the fucking flight like an idiot. The guy
Yeah,
that
like
posted
there's no
that was that guy, and he has me blocked
That
on
same
Twitter.
suit. Okay, never mind. But
yeah, like there's no way that was real because there were no sources verifying any of that shit. It was just somebody just talking out their ass.
fair point.
Yeah, facts. Like it, and Crosby's a private guy. Like he's not gonna come abroad, but an insider would know. Like Crosby is disgruntled. He's not happy. Like Friedman or LeBron or one of those guys that we trust, right, would have reported that.
Oh no, I agree with that. I'm only just trying to say, like, this would that rumor kind of like just took hold, and essentially it was like one of the stupidest. It was one of the stupidest rumors out there, right?
Yeah, man, that was the dumbest shit, bro. And we all fell for it, bro. We all fell for it because I tracked the flight too. I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't track the flight. I tracked the flight too.
Oh, trust me, we all did, and a lot of us virtually cheesed when he went to the Dodgers. But then again, a lot of these athletes don't know a shit. So I think that's something we all have to take into consideration.
Yeah.
I gotta get us back on track just a little bit here. I also agree with Pittsburgh being a loser as well because I mean, especially when you you guys mentioned how Crosby answered that specific question he was being asked about the moves that were made. I think his response was basically what the rest of us were thinking, in the sense of why is Bunting an upgrade over Gensel?
Right?
How is he an upgrade over Gensel? How does that make you better?
Yeah. I understand your logic here because Bunting to me is not an upgrade over Gensel, who was very instrumental in the Penguins' run when they had their run. You know what I'm saying? Like Bunting has value, but not that type of value. And what you traded for to bring back, like, come on, bro. Like these are like some analytical like guys that have like 76% shot volume. Like I don't know, bro. Like I don't know, bro. Like I just feel bad for Sid right now. Still, I feel really bad for Sid because he took that city and put it on his back, bro. From the day he got drafted, bro, he put that city of Pittsburgh on his back, bro. Real shit. And I don't think Sid deserves that either, bro. As for what he's done for the sport of professional hockey, bro. You know what I'm saying? For the gold medal goal that he scored, for the amount of Stanley Cups that he's won, and the MVPs and the scoring titles, and whatever other accolades he's won, bro. A player of Sidney Crosby's caliber does not deserve that. I understand it's a business, but there's a way to go about business, bro. And Mr. Dubis, that was a stupid trade. Like you could have easily waited to offload that in the off season and like either see if you could bring him back on a cheaper deal or let him pick where he wants to go. At least this way, that would be the right way to handle that. Like, trade him for Michael Bunting and a bunch of nonsense, bro. That's disrespectful, bro. As far as I'm concerned, and that's how I feel about that. And I know there was other trades that were made, but yeah, these are the ones that stick out in my mind the most.
Speaking of Pittsburgh, let's go 305 miles down the road to Philadelphia, where we'll find ourselves with in Philadelphia and Don Tortorella. You guys want to?
I love him.
No?
I love him. You know who was reffing that game? Wes McCauley. Wes McCauley was the. So apparently, like the score was like 4-0 in like the first period, and Tampa had like what I think two maybe 3 power plays. I could be wrong, but it was something like that. And I guess Torts just had enough of Wes McCauley, and he laid into him. I commend him because I'm sure you guys all seen the clip. He said he wasn't going nowhere. Man said, "Yo, I'm not leaving." he told Wes McCauley, "I'm not leaving." And the more these coaches stand up to these refs, the more these coaches stand up to these refs, is the less the refs are gonna stop the fuckery, bro. The more they're gonna stop the fuckery, bro. What Tortorella did was take a stand, bro, and now the coaches see the stand that he's taken, and the coaches are not gonna take this dumb, inconsistent bullshit officiating shit. Call the game down the middle like the way the game is supposed to be called. Stop putting your biasness on the game when you're reffing it.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
Philadelphia, they took 6 penalties to
Mhm.
Tampa Bay's 1 in the opening 14 minutes.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
And it was 4-0 halfway through the first.
That's bullshit, Troy. 6 penalties to 1 in 14 minutes, bro. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's against Tampa Bay, who has a lethal power play with Kucherov and Stamkos and those guys.
yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. I would have done the same shit. I would have been like that guy in the video you posted that threw the bench and only got 1 game. I would have
Robbie
this.
historic.
I would
Sorry,
have
it was 6-2 in penalties because the Tampa Bay didn't get their second penalty until after Torts took his bench minor.
Can you believe that? That's bull. That's bullshit.
It is bullshit, and I fully agree with you. But like, I don't understand. I really don't understand the logic behind like what the league's doing with these shitty referees. But it's just like you'd think after the amount of money that's being invested in sports betting, you think like what the NFL would have some moral stance on the fact that like their referees are not trying to fucking rig games so that they can get a payout.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah,
Bro, 6 penalties to 1 in 14 minutes.
it's kind of nuts.
Come on, man. And out of all right, let's be real. Out of the penalties that are called in the NHL, I'm gonna be fair here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say about 80% of the penalties that are called, a fair 80% of the penalties that are called in the NHL are legit. Okay, this was a hook, this was a trip, this was a slash. The other 20%, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Is that 20% that has to do, in my personal opinion, I'm not speaking on behalf of Third Intermission Podcast here, or I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone else but myself. I'm speaking on behalf of me. Based off of what I see with my eyes, I do feel that the way the games are being officiated, the refs have influences in the outcome of some of these games. I personally feel this way. And again, this is not the opinion of the Third Intermission Podcast. This is the third intermission of the individual, me, Jason, my opinion.
Powerful
I
stuff.
agree. I feel like the referees, 80% is, yeah, they're good, deserved calls. The rest of them, like, they're iffy, they're phantom calls. There's this so-called makeup calls, and then obviously you have your biased referees who are just making calls because you have some kind of sour relationship with that team. Um, that being said, I really feel like the NHL and Gary Bettman really need to move off that stance of not having the referees meet with the media. Because if you're forcing your players and coaches to do it, you should make the officials do it too. And the fact that if the players and the coaches don't talk to the media, they get fined. So
Yep.
why are you fining them for talking to the media?
Yep.
Let them say what they want to say. If you want to find somebody, find the reporters for baiting them into answering that question.
Yes,
Or
please.
if you don't like them running down your officiating, the simplest solution would be to do something about it.
Yeah, and he's had so much time to do something about it. And this is a great point you bring up. The refs in the NHL should be, just like the players, just like the coaches, accountable and have to go in front of cameras and answer questions as well. I agree with this 100% because now this is getting too far. This is getting too far. Like that yet like there's no way you find this guy 50K and 2 games. And then there was a guy who threw a bench, a foreign object, a bench onto the ice years ago, and you only gave him one. It's not like this guy, he didn't want to leave too. Okay, fine. That's the 1 game. You know what I'm saying? But you're finding this guy 50K, bro? 50K you're finding him? Come on, man. If I would appeal that. I would appeal that, bro. Like there's no I understand the suspension of a game, but okay, fine, 2 games. Because he said he's not going nowhere. And he kept saying it and he stayed there for like a good 10 minutes and he delayed the game. He kind of did. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen that before where a coach refused to leave. I've never seen that before. So to see that was great. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I get it. Okay, you're gonna suspend him. All right, give him his. But the 50K is overkill, bro. I don't know what type of point they're trying to make. It's like they're trying to deflect, right? The only reason why he was doing that is because of the 6-1 penalty differential that the Tampa Bay Lightning had in that game on Saturday, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
saying? You remember
Sorry, go ahead.
You remember in 2004 when Jeremy Roenick threw the water bottle at the referee because he missed a high stick and he lost a couple of teams because of that? Jeremy Roenick got 1 game for that.
See?
And Tortorella gets 2 for saying no. Screw you. No, I'm not going nowhere.
And the 50K, bro. The 50K is the kicker. That's 50K, bro. I've never seen that amount in player safety, bro. Not or suspension or fine. I've never seen not 50K, bro. I can't even tell you like if I've seen 50K, but 50K, bro. That's a lot. Jake McCabe got 5K for cross-checking Marchand. Marchand gets nothing for giving Nyes. It was a good hockey play. Nyes had his head down, but it kind of looked like Marchand was reaching up in the upper part of his body. Nyes didn't come back that game. Precautionary issues, you know? But I mean, like, there's so many high stick slashes, things that we see that are worth $50,000 fines. You know what I mean? Based off of the severity and damage of it. And then when we look and we check, player safety is like, okay, well, we're only gonna fine you $2,500 as the maximum amount for this like violation. What are you talking? How do you go from $2,500 to $50K, bro? How?
I feel like they're only doing that to make an example of him, and that just drives me nuts because it's like if you're gonna make an example of somebody, like it's like you guys said, it has to be the referees in that situation, or lo and behold, you have fucking media, you have members of the fucking media trying to say quote unquote, oh well, maybe this and this happened. Was it wrong for you to be that reactionary in that situation, or just some other cockamamie fucking question that will be thrown out there left, right, and center? And it's like, again, they can be fined just as well, but that would make way too much sense. So I don't know. Like, this whole situation is a giant mess.
It is.
And like Tortorella should have like at least gotten 2 games. 2 games in 50K, like you said, is overkill.
Overkill, Dave. Overkill, bro. Overkill, guy. Two games and 5K. I would be like, all right. 10K, I'd be like, okay, what? Okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
50K, bro. 50K, 50,000. And they're not even looking at why he's upset. It's like, so the message that I'm seeing here, and you guys could call me crazy if you want, but the message I'm seeing here is that when somebody talks back to the officials, they get punished because of the way the officials are calling a game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So coaches aren't supposed to like talk. Huh?
Kind of proves the point that some of this shit is fixed.
Well, and this is why I said what I said on my behalf and not on the behalf of Third Intermission Podcast. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said that I believe that some of these refs in the NHL, they're fixing the games. and it's taken the fun out of the game, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we want to see games with natural outcomes. Like today, we got to see an amazing outcome today with Minnesota and Nashville, where Minnesota pulled their goalie. You know, they needed the points and they took a risk and they went for it all and they gambled and they won. You know what I'm saying? Like, we want outcomes like this. You know, like, we don't want the refs to fucking change the balance of the game with their stupid officiating and shit like that. You know, give the refs all the tools, give them instant review so that they can take a minute to stop the game and look at a call to see if it was actually a penalty before you're going to call it a penalty, just to confirm it. Confirm the call on the ice, you know? Take that extra time out of the game to do that so that we get a fair outcome. You know what I'm saying? Like, this fixing the game to like how you want it to be is dumb. Like, and they need to fix the LTIR rule too, because it's there in place for a reason, and it does have loopholes, and certain teams know how to expose those loopholes on the LTIR. I'm not taking nothing away from Mark Stone. I know his spleen is messed up. He's injured. No, I'm not saying that he's not injured. What I'm saying is there has to be a cap on it, and there has to be a limit as to how much of it you can use, whether you're looking to add players and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Because then it gives other teams like an unfair advantage, you know? So they have to try and find a balance out for that rule still. Yeah, I think so, because teams are just using that to its own advantage. And I just wanted to say that earlier too.
I wonder if this will come up during the next general managers meeting or during the next process of bargaining the CBA. Like, I'm sure it'll come up at some point, but I don't see anything coming of that. Especially if the cap goes up. Like Avery said, people are just gonna say, you know, hire a smarter GM that can do that.
Too,
That can do that kind of stuff until they can close that loophole.
That too. But people are, I don't know. I just feel that it's a hole that needs to fix, bro. Because now you're gonna have super teams like in the NBA. Vegas is now a super team. Colorado has been a super team, but they just have pieces, and they got, like, Colorado's had some good GMs to be able to like nurture that franchise. You know what I'm saying? Florida has a great GM too. You know what I'm saying? And you do have some good GMs in the league that know how to make the money work and make moves with the LTIR. But I mean, like, it can't be as ridiculous as like being able to add Hurdle, Hannafin, and Mantha and half off, Hannafin half off retained salary, and Hurdle like retained salary. Like, that's insane, bro. And then what's gonna happen when you reactivate the guys that you have on playoff time? Come playoff time, there's no limit. You can be as over as you need to be, but like, I mean, like, if you're over, like, you should have to pay more of a tax, man. And you should
And how do
lose
you
some
play
of your
them
money.
all?
Say that again, brother.
How do you play them all? Because you're gonna have to disrupt chemistry.
That too, right? Like, oh, just I don't know, bro. I like it, but I don't like it. It's like one of those double-edged swords. Like, when it works for you, you're happy, but when it's working against you, you're mad as fuck. That's where I'm at right now, bro. I hate it.
You said NBA, and I agree with you in the sense where, like, they need to close this loophole faster, because much like how the NBA adjusted their rules for this quote unquote load management, where you have stars sitting certain games and then playing the next one, and, you know, like, they're facing some kind of injury or whatever. I think if you close this loophole faster, it'll prevent NHL players from doing the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
not against like certain teams per se, but for milking an injury for more than it's worth, to sit out long term, so that way your team being convinced by your, you know, upper management to sit out long term, so that way they can make more moves to bolster their team. Because I mean, like you said, like, it's fair, but it's kind of not fair at the same time, that you're essentially allowed to stack your team like NHL 2K and not get any repercussions from
Yo, it's like an all-star team. Vegas is an all-star team, bro. That's like
practically.
at least 30 to 40% of an all-star team. That's nuts. 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 Nuts, bro. Nuts.
All of
But
this is
yeah,
wild. Every last bit of it is wild. And
100%. But yeah, back to Tortorella. And
yeah,
I'm sorry for going off guard on the LTIR, but I did want to bring it up. But going back to Tortorella, like I commend him for taking the stand that he's taken, and I do hope other coaches, take the time to like look into this stuff too, because the refs are very responsible for certain outcomes in certain games, in my opinion, and not in the opinion of Third Intermission Podcast.
thank you for making 100% clear on that one. No shade, really. But does this cause a cascade effect in having, say, other coaches finally just say, you know what, we're tired of this nonsense? Because I know Keefe is dying to actually go off on in the same way on these refs. Of course, with Lindy Ruff being fired, I don't know who's in New Jersey situation, but I'm probably sure they're feeling the same way. Patrick Waugh in Long Island's probably feeling the same way as well. Like, we've noticed over the last 5-6 months of the entire season that there has been absolute inconsistency with each referee, and like Wes McCauley has been around for like what, almost 20 years, give or take. Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating to see someone like that, is still in the league and still making bullshit calls to the point where it's like you have to ask if he's either just fucking senile or he's just a bad referee. But in any given event, it's like you got to get these guys out of here. No questions asked. You got to get these guys out of here, because one false move and it's like the NHL could be liable for a lawsuit. The NHL knows this, but they choose not to do anything.
Because everybody's making good money right now.
Well, of course, but like, again, that gravy train could always stop if one thing fucks up. And it has to be one big, huge thing that'll fuck it up. And I feel like that's coming soon.
Let's see, man.
Yeah, let's see indeed. All right. So that is our episode for this evening. Like to say thank you to Troy and Jason for coming through tonight. Avery will be back next week. We will be talking mad shit about the Oilers again once he gets back. Hopefully, he has fun at the U Sports Basketball Championships. We just found out Laval has won the whole thing, so congratulations to them. Didn't think a Quebec school would actually be able to take out some of the best teams in Ontario, but I digress.
Hey, they got some hoopers out there, bro.
Oh no. I know that for a fact, but like some of the best hoopers have come not from Laval, but more like, say, Montreal, Sherbrooke, and for underrated value, Sherbrooke. So again, Laval, I got beef with Laval, right? Let's put it that way. Nah, but like, real talks, congratulations to Laval Rouge Or for winning the men's basketball championship. We're gonna try and keep an eye on the men's final 8 in men's hockey and the women's final 8 in women's hockey for Canadian University Sports as well. We're also gonna try and keep an eye on the CHL situation. Of course, London gearing up for another playoff run and potentially another Memorial Cup. If Kitchener has something to say about it, I'm going to be making sure that my ass is down there and cussing London off every second I can. Other than that, I'm losing track right now. Sorry, folks. Thank you once again for letting us grace the space in between your head top. Of course, like I said, this is your boy Dave signing off for the evening. Once again, you can find us at the socials, both at Toronto Third on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can listen/subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts from. And that would include Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and Podbean. Other than that, until next week, guys, deuces.
Drink your water, guys.